Hi guys, this is Joyce from Enjoy Scrappin' 2. Today we'll be creating some different looks using the same technique that we used for this card. I've had many questions regarding this a card that we created about a couple weeks ago. If you need to only use a detailed image for this type of technique. This specific one I use is Altenews layering stamp set. That's the stamp that we use there. That's the stamp. And depending on which ones you use, you get a different look. As you can see, that top one is the one on the right that I'm showing you. So you can get a very different look just with the type of stamp that you use. Some asked if you can use a lined image to create this type of look, and of course you can. You'll get a different look, but you can also create something subtle and beautiful just by using the lined image, and that's what we're going to be playing around with today. Here is the lined image of the same flower, and you can see the three different looks that we got from the three different stamps here. I mean, they're all the same stamp set, but that one is the lined image, and you can get a real soft, subtle watercolor look. Here I chose one that had a thicker lined image, and you can see the difference between those two right there. So that's what we're going to be playing around with today. And I'm going to show you how easy it is, and I'm going to be doing this all in real time. So it's not that hard at all. So this is a clearly besotted stamp set, the butterfly. It's called the Elegant Butterflies. I've had this for a while in my stash. I've never used it, so I thought I'd pull it out today. And that flower and the butterfly is actually the same color. So again, we're going to use Distress inks. Here I have a watercolor cardstock here. This is a Strathmore watercolor cardstock. And I'm using the pickled raspberry. And I have my stamps mounted. And we're going to go ahead and ink up our lined image. And this is very easy to do. It doesn't take that long at all. So you can create multiple cards, and just by changing out the colors, you can get a different look with a different stamp pad. So I'm stamping it here at the bottom right corner. And I'm going to zoom you in. The brush that I'm using here is a very small number 2 filbert brush. What a filbert brush is, this comes to kind of like a point at the end. So it's not a round brush. You want something that doesn't take too much water, because you don't want too much water. You can also use like a number that's a 2/0 round brush at the top that I just showed you. You just want something that won't hold too much water, because we're working with a very fine line here. And you can start wherever. And another question that was asked was how long of a time do you need before you start working with it with the water in a brush? Distress inks takes long, not a whole lot long to dry, but it does take longer than normal ink pads, so you don't have to like totally rush through it or anything, but I would work one flower at a time. So as you can see here, I have there's barely enough water on the brush, and I'm just touching the lines and kind of bringing out some color. And you can see that I'm using my finger to get the bead off of the edge of the brush, because you don't want that bead to be coming down. So you want more of a control. This way you can get a better control of the water ratio on the brush. Excuse me. And I'm just touching the lines and then just bringing it out a little. And that will create this watercolored look, like a real soft watercolor look, almost look like you drew the image or something like that. So it's a very great technique to try. So as you can see, all I'm doing is touching the line and bringing the color out a little, and you do want to leave a white space, otherwise the whole petal is going to be one color and you're not going to see the difference from the dark colors, the dark edges to the middle of the flower. I hope I'm making sense. And you can turn your page as you work if you like. And what I'm doing is I'm also getting rid of the hard lines that sometimes you can create when you have too much color. So even if I'm bringing out the little lines of from the petals, when I have too much color, when I feel like I have too much color on my brush, I'm wiping it off at the side where I have a tissue. So if you add a lot of water, then we're not going to see the lines of the petals at all, and it's going to kind of become just like a one. There's not going to be any distinction between the petals. So you do want to keep some of the lines. But so all we're doing is basically softening up the lines. That's all we're doing. And leaving the centers of the petals white. So you can see how fast this is. So go ahead and try it out. With each time you get a different look. They may not all look the same, but that's the fun part about the watercolored effect. So you can see that I just kind of pulled the bead off of the brush with my finger, and you'll see me doing that quite often, because this is a really tiny brush, and even if you wipe off the water from the brush on a paper towel, you might still get that bead of water at the barrel, I guess is what it's called, of the brush. So you can see. So even with the thin lined image such as this, you can still create that watercolored effect. So as we move on closer to the center of the flower, you're not going to have as much of a larger area to work, so you'll probably need to wipe off your brush a lot more, because you don't want to color in the entire center part of the flower, because it's a smaller area to work in. As we get closer, you can see the colors are getting darker, because we don't have that wide, the larger petals that we worked on the outer part of the flower. So you'll see me wiping off a lot more. because we want to keep the centers, we want to leave a little bit of the white area. Especially right around this area. Just barely touch the lines, and then that just leave it. And that's it, guys. That's all it is. And you can add additional petals, and you can see that we got that soft gradation look. And I'm gonna show you with the butterfly as well. So you can use like a smaller flower to kind of accent around the edges, like you see. Now I'll be finishing it up off camera, since I don't want the video to be too long. So now I have another watercolor cardstock, which I cut with the mama elephants. I'll show you at the end what die set that I use. And I'm using the same color, but because this is has a thicker line, it's going to look a lot darker. And because I've never stamped this stamp before, the stamp pad is kind of beating up on the stamp, but that's okay, because we're going to use the water to kind of make the colors even. So because these are thicker lines, you don't want to, it has thicker lines, but it also has smaller areas to work. So you definitely don't want to color the entire thing. So this is where you can soften up the outer edges where the lines are dark and make it kind of even. So even though the stamp pad kind of beat it up on the stamp, we can fix that by kind of using that those inks to even out the edges. So again, I don't have much water on the brush. So I'm getting the thicker lines out of the way first to even it out. And then for this, all I did was basically just go over the lines. I didn't do much of the blending like I did with the flower petal. I basically just touched the lines of the inside of the butterfly. So you can see how, because there's only a slight spaces between the wings, you can easily just make that all into one color. So just go ahead and just kind of go over the lines and leave it alone, so that you still get the little bit of white showing. So look at the stamp sets that you have on hand, and you can actually do this to I believe most of your stamp sets that you own, and get a whole different look. I'm doing this in real time because I wanted to kind of explain a little more. so that maybe you'll have like a little bit of a better understanding of what I'm doing, and so that I can explain it a little more. But I don't know, sometimes I can't explain things as much as showing it, I guess, is an easier way for me, because I don't explain things too well in detail. But again, for this side, I'm doing the same thing, and already it kind of looks like watercolor. So this is kind of like doing like a no line coloring in a way, but we're just using the ink that's left from the stamped image. So that's basically it, guys. Can't believe it's November already. Christmas is gonna be coming around very shortly. I have to start making tons of cards, so this is a real fast way to get the real pretty, subtle, beautiful look to give to your family and friends. And then the more you try, the easier it'll be, and you can do it a lot faster. And you don't really need to fiddle with it like what I'm doing here. I keep fiddling with it, but you don't need to. So this is the finished cards. So there's the flower one that we did. I just added a few more of the smaller flowers, added a black cardstock, and I stamped the sentiments, added some clear sparkling sequins, and attached it to my 110-pound Nina Solar White. The sentiment is from this stamp set, from the Clearly Besotted, which I thought was perfect. And then this is the die set that I use. This is one of my favorite die set. It's very useful. I use it a lot because it has a stitched rectangle as well as a scalloped and tags and all that kind of stuff. So that's all the look that we created. So I hope this made sense to you guys. I hope I explained it well enough. And go ahead and try out and make some beautiful cards for yourself or for your family and friends. I thank you guys so much. I'll see you back soon. Bye.